So, how many of you have made the connection between loving yourself and living beyond yourself, or having influence, positive impact on the people and the situations around you? This is so key to understand, because if you are a person who is either just very heart-centered, big-hearted, and loves to take care of people, or if you're someone who wants to have more of an impact and influence things that are going on around you for the good, this is an essential piece to make sure that you are not missing, okay? And it's a connection that not everyone quite understands at first. So self-love really is one of the biggest keys to generosity and having impact. And I want to explain in this video why that is. So a lot of times we can equate self-love with selfishness. Maybe even you don't do that, but maybe other people hear you talking about self-love and they're like, oh, that's so selfish. Or people who say that are really just secretly selfish people. Or maybe they see it as, you being a brat, or maybe you have a fear that you would be a terrible friend or lover or partner if you were to take your self-love, your self-care more seriously. These are all concerns that, people can have, concerns that you might have. And it's valid to wonder about this and to be curious about that. That's totally okay. I want us to get a grasp of why saying yes to yourself doesn't have to mean that you're necessarily saying no to everybody else, okay? It's not like this direct relationship. It doesn't mean that you have to put everybody else last and be like an obnoxious princess, okay? That's not what self-love is about. So let me ask you something, okay? This will help you to begin to get more of a picture of how this works. When you think of someone who struggles to love themselves or care for themselves, what kind of images come to your mind? Are they more likely to be happy or unhappy? Are they more likely to be connected or disconnected? Do they look and feel healthy or unhealthy? And lastly, do people who struggle to love themselves or care for themselves make great leaders? So, okay, what about the opposite now? When you think of someone who is comfortable with loving and taking care of themselves, whose image comes to mind? Is this person more happy or unhappy? Do they have great relationships, or do they struggle with connection? Are they thriving or not? And do they find it easy to influence others? Now, I'm guessing that whoever you thought of or whatever images came to mind, you would much rather be a part of the second, self-loving group than the first group that I described, right? It's very clear that when we stop to think about which people are actually living the lives that we admire or look up to, or the kinds of lives that we would want to create for ourselves, learning to love ourselves is actually really key to being able to do that. So if you're wanting to find a way to kind of steer yourself powerfully in the direction of the life that you want to create for yourself, this is why, not missing out on how self-love works for you is really vital. So when you're in the habit of not practicing, okay, if you're in the habit of not practicing self-acceptance, self-validation, self-care, all these things that go into self-love, it's going to come out in very predictable ways that lower the quality of your life. And I'm speaking here, again, as someone who's worked in the mental health field. If you've seen any of my other videos, I've worked in the mental health field for over 14 years. So these are things I see repeatedly, over and over again, okay? So when you are not practicing self-acceptance, self-compassion, self-validation, self-love, et cetera, you are more likely to struggle with your confidence, and that prevents you from taking healthy, appropriate, and necessary risks in your life. We're not talking about, just negligent risks, right? We're talking about risks to be seen, to be have your voice heard, risks to go after romantic attachment, like these kinds of risks are what I'm talking about. But when you struggle with your confidence, you are not able to take those risks that would improve the quality of your life. And that prevents you from actually taking full advantage of the opportunities that you have available to you. So you're also more likely, when you neglect these different areas of self-love, to neglect your health, both your physical and your emotional health. You will see these things as being non-essential, right? Other things will seem more important, and you will feel obligated to put everyone else's preferences and requests ahead of your own actual needs. And you'll suffer further pain as a result, right? We're already ignoring the initial pain of the emotional and physical needs that you needed to take care of, and then it's going to add on to that. Again, this is what I've seen repeatedly over and over again. What I've experienced too, by the way. Let me point that out. Also, when you are not practicing all these components of self-love, you deny yourself your own assertive voice. And that keeps other people from knowing the real, authentic you in your relationships and in your communities or environments. So this guarantees that any deep or lasting connection will not happen. You won't have connections that thrive, and your relationships will fizzle out or even potentially grow harmful over time. And I'll let you kind of do the math on that, right? Like if you're not able to speak up for yourself in situations where harm is, starting to be done to you, you're starting to recognize like patterns of manipulation or someone putting you down or taking credit for things that you've done at work or whatever, and you're not able to speak up with your assertive voice, that's going to have harmful impacts on you. So these are just some of the common natural effects that I've seen over many, many years. But what's really exciting is that just the kind of changes that are possible when someone starts to put into practice the kinds of core self-love skills that I talk about and teach to my clients. So when the way that you treat yourself actually matches the true value of who you are, everything begins to change. You recognize the good that you already have in your life, and you willingly begin to receive the good that was already available, but that you weren't able to let in before. You take up space differently in your relationships, whether that's platonic, romantic, work relationships. It doesn't matter. You just communicate and interact with others with more confidence, and this, of course, yields much more positive results. And I want to be clear here, positive results includes both drawing people to you who are more grounded and positive themselves. It also means that you're repelling people who want to remain negative, stuck, in like victim mentality, or even narcissistic kinds of traits. You're going to naturally repel more of those people. Not necessarily perfectly. There's always that one person who slips in, right? But you're going to be able to repel them more often than not, which will save you a lot of grief. So the last example that I'll give today, because there's so many, is that you'll actually become more generous. And that's what this video really is kind of drawing you to, right? Like if you have a heart to be generous, first of all, I applaud you. I admire you. We need more of you. So just please keep being who you are. If you have a heart to be generous, it's actually really important that you in particular get this right. Because self-love, if you don't have it, what's going to happen, okay, is that when you're not meeting your own needs, you're going to actually burn yourself out. You're going to flame out as you're trying to take care of everybody else and stick up for all these causes and do all the marches and the things. I've seen it, okay? If you're not filling up your own cup, you're going to burn out. If you're starving, it's really hard to feed somebody else who's hungry, right? It's hard to pour from an empty cup. And I'll also point out that it's hard to inspire others when you struggle with your self-love and you don't make it a priority. And then you begin to exhibit patterns of someone who struggles to accept themselves, someone who feels ashamed to be their full selves. It's going to be hard for you to inspire or lead others in the very good things that you want to do. Your core needs have to be met in order for you to be as generous and as effective as possible. So when you're able to fill up with that self-love, you actually become more creative. You have more capacity to give. You have more internal resources to reach into, right, in order to give out of that to influence other people. So to wrap this up today, please hear this. You need to learn to better love yourself in order to live beyond yourself, in order to go from navel gazing and shrinking inwards and kind of just, right, having this sort of posture in your body and your spirit. You need to be able to exhibit that self-love towards yourself and be in the practice of caring for yourself so that you can have an abundance from which to give and to serve. Perfection is not required. Just consistency is the key here, okay? So if you want guidance on how to achieve this for yourself and you'd like to save yourself the time and the energy and the money that you would otherwise potentially waste trying to figure it out yourself and learning it the hard way, make sure that you click on the link in the description below, because I have a program that really helps set you up for success with this. It gives you all the nuts and bolts and all the goodies that help you to get there faster and to maintain your growth with your self-love after you get there. So start with those free resources. You'll see that link in the description so that you can start making progress on this today. Start changing your experience of your love for yourself and your care for yourself today, because everyone who's in your sphere of influence, right, who's going to be influenced by you is waiting for you to have that kind of impact on them. I'll talk with you soon.